Well, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
It is good to see everybody. I'm glad everybody is here. And happy Mother's Day to all of our mothers. We are glad that we can celebrate with you. It is a good thing. But Renee, there's one thing, my understanding is that when you have women on the back of motorcycles making the front page of the newspaper, that most of them have tattoos.
I don't think this one does.
Oh, okay. I just thought we would check. All right. Well, it was good to see everybody. It was good to have I think they're going to do it again tonight. At 7:30, they're going to drag Headley, if anybody wants to go. It's a good time. I appreciated Jimmy's prayer. One of the things I did want to appreciate about it is his prayer for those who are taking care of us. And I know that we want to remember Juanell Carson, who is in the McLean nursing home and has tested positive. And that's got to be a scary thing. We want to remember Juanell and we want to remember her family. We talked to Tom Friday night, and not horrible idea, not a horrible report, but not the best either. But we do want to remember those people who are in the nursing home, not just Juanell, but all of those who have tested positive. It seems like once it gets there, it is a rampant thing. And we want to remember those in McLean, that there are 8 of the 34 residents have tested positive for COVID-19. 3 of the employees have it. And Trudy Pate Stubblefield, that's Joella's and Tony's daughter. Trudy is one of the workers over there and is working 12-hour shifts every day without a day off. And so it's not just that she is putting her life on the line by helping those people, but she is probably close to exhaustion, I would imagine. So let's keep in mind those people who are working to help people and are putting their own lives on the line, because they are. And let's keep them in mind. It's not a joke, but we do appreciate all those people. Let's keep them in our prayers. You know, what we were talking before, that we want to help our communities. And if anybody knows of somebody that's in trouble and needs help, that either they need financial assistance or food, or they just need somebody to go to the store or whatever it may be, we want to do that. But we don't always know. But if anybody knows of somebody that needs help in any way, if you would let us know, we're going to try to help them. We talked about that we do want to make an effort to help in general. And so I think we're going to start making a donation to the food bank to help with people. And we will help with buying lunches down here at the senior citizens, to make a donation to the senior citizens. That if there's somebody that needs a lunch, that we can do that. Now those are just 2 things that we've thought about trying to do. If you have a suggestion of how we can help somebody in need or help our community, we want to listen, because we think that's what we want to do. We know that's what we want to do. So we're going to, but let me tell you this. I know we're kind of going through stuff. It is so good to see everybody here in the building. That doesn't mean we don't want to be cautious, that we want to take care of our plans, but it is good to see everyone, without a doubt. And it does my heart good, and I'm sure it does your heart good also, to be back together so that we can see each other. And one of the things is, as we've been gone and we've been separated, and the virus is hitting everywhere, is one of the questions I've heard, and I don't know if you've heard it or not, but if you look, you will, is where is God in this pandemic? You can hear it on the talk shows, and you can read it online, and they're saying, where's God? And why is this going on? I don't think that's a new question. And there's all kinds of answers when you look at that question. Different people will give you different answers. Some people will say, well, you look at the violence and the oppression and the people that are dying of disease of all kinds, that's evidence that God has abandoned the world. That He may have been the creator and He put it together, but He's gone. He's abandoned it. Otherwise, all these things would not be happening. That He's like the clockmaker that started things up and now just letting it go. Other people will say, no, God is present. And He's still present in the world. It's just that He's losing. That it's a battle when you look at the pandemic and the violence and the wars and the earthquakes and the fires and whatever it may be. That Satan is winning. that man's selfishness and the way that we treat each other is evidence that Satan is winning. That God may not have abandoned us, but he's losing. Other people will say, no, there was no God anyway. We're just a bunch of neurons bouncing around in the inside of our head. And that's a silly question to ask because there is none. Other people will say, yeah, God's here and He is sending this pandemic. And He's the one that's doing it because of the way we treat each other. Or maybe because of the way we treat the earth. That He's trying to give everything a little relief. And that's why He's doing it. It's because we abuse each other. Because we of abortion. Or the way that we treat each other. That this is a way of getting our attention. And that it's been sent. And you can see all those. And some people will say, well, it even gets political. That because of what's going on in politics, that God has sent this to correct the situation. And it could go either way. Whether you're on the Republican or Democrat or some other. Everybody's got an idea. And that's why it's happening. And then some people will say, that's a bad question to ask. That you are showing disrespect to God to ask, where is God? That you shouldn't even ask that question. And I don't think so. I think it's a fair question. Because one of the things when we ask where is God, that means we're seeking God. That we are looking for Him. And that's something I think God always wants us to do, is look for Him and seek Him. Because like it tells us in Isaiah 55:6, seek God while He may be found. And I think if we seek Him, we will find Him. And so the idea that we shouldn't ask where's God is not the right question. We should always be seeking God. Because if we seek Him, we will find Him. I've been reading Psalms and some in my daily Bible reading. And one of them that kind of struck me, or two of them actually, that we're going to read is going to be our text for our lesson today. It asks, where is God? That's one of the questions these Psalms ask. But we're going to go to Psalms 42, and we're going to read 42 and 43. One of the things that the people that are smarter than me say is that it's possible that 42 and 43 at one time were all one psalm. That when you look at some of the ancient manuscripts, they are treated as one. That's not the point. We're going to read them both and look at them. They certainly go together. We're going to start with Psalm 42:1. As a deer pants for flowing streams, so my soul pants for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? My tears have been my food day and night. While they say to me all the day long, where is your God? These things I remember as I pour out my soul. How I would go with the throng and lead them in procession to the house of God, with shouts and songs of praise, a multitude keeping festival. Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise Him, my salvation and my God. My soul is cast down within me, therefore I remember you, from the land of Jordan and of Hermon, from Mount Mizar. Deep calls to deep. At the roar of your waterfalls, all your breakers and your waves have gone over me. By day the Lord commands His steadfast love, and at night His song is with me. A prayer to the God of my life. I say to God, my rock, why have you forgotten me? Why do I go mourning because of the oppression of the enemy, as with a deadly wound in my bones? My adversaries taunt me, and while they say to me all day long, where is your God? Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise Him, my salvation and my God. Vindicate me, O God, and defend my cause against an ungodly people. And from deceitful and unjust man deliver me. For you are the God in whom I take refuge. Why have you rejected me? Why do I go about mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? Send out your light and your truth. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your holy hill and to your dwelling. Then I will go to the altar of God, to God my exceeding joy. And I will praise you with the lyre, O God, my God. Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, For I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. As we look at those Psalms, one of the things that strikes me is that in verse 4 of 42, he's talking about, I remember when I used to go to church, I used to go to the assembly, and I would go with the people, and I would lead the people, and we would sing, and we would worship. And I miss that. And for some reason, he's in exile. It doesn't tell us why he's in exile and why he can't go. It's possible because the whole country's in exile. That's very possible. But we don't know. It might be because he's sick, or because of some sort of disease, or it could be there's war. But he is in exile, and he is wanting to return to the assembly. And that reminds us of kind of what we were. That we have been in that situation. We know what it's like to be in exile from the church, to be in exile from coming to worship together. And we long to get that together so that we can be together and that we can worship together. When we read his account of what it was like to go to the temple, there's singing, and there's festival, and there's joy. And I don't know exactly. A lot of times when I think of temple worship at this time, I don't see it, I don't imagine it, because I'm obviously not there, as it being a time of joy and festival and singing. I think of all the sacrifices that are going on, all the blood that's there. It seems like that most of the time it's going to be a harangue about rules, that's the way we look at it. And I think when we read these type verses, we realize that that's not right. That maybe this is a whole lot more joyous and a whole lot more of a time of worship and celebration than we realize. And I think that's important to remember. That sometimes we get the idea that Old Testament worship was just a bunch of hard times. And we see that it was a good, joyous time for those people. And when we think about worshiping God, we know that. We know that when you worship God and when you get together to worship God, it's going to be a time of joy. It's going to be a time that we can be together. And that we shouldn't look at it that way. But sometimes I think we do. But one of the things is when we're in this situation, obviously he's in a problem. He's got people, enemies around him. He's being oppressed. They're all saying, where is your God? Where is he? And he has a kind of when we're in that situation, we can learn from him. Because when we look here, let's look at verse 4. These things I remember as I pour out my soul. These things I remember as I pour out my soul. Who is he pouring out his soul to? He's pouring it out to God. We don't know who this psalmist is. It's not attributed to David. But he goes and he pours out his lament to God. And sometimes I think we're afraid to do that. That we're afraid to go to God and just say, why? Why is this going on? And this guy does. He pours out his soul to God. And when if you go to a counselor today, a therapist, one of the things they're going to tell us is that you need to be able to pour out your soul. Whether it's to your therapist, or maybe it's to your spouse or a friend. But you need to have someone who will listen to you. And that's something that this guy, this psalmist has. Somebody he can pour it out to, and that's God. And I think that's something we want to remember. That we can pour out our soul to God. And we want to have that kind of relationship with God so that we can. So that we can go to him and just say, why is this going? Why is this happening? And we can go to him for comfort. But it also says, remember. And that's one of the words I think we always need to keep in mind is remember. It's a powerful word. One of the things about the Hebrew language, and I'm not a Hebrew scholar, but many times words in Hebrew that get translated to English, it's hard to give that full flavor of what those words mean. Like the words that we translate to faith. A lot of times in English we think that faith means that we agree, that we mentally agree, that we believe, we agree, and we go from there. Faith in the Bible, faith whether it's in the Greek language or in the Hebrew language, has a whole lot more to it. It's not just a mental assent. It involves action, that we are putting our trust in the Lord. And remember is kind of like that too. Sometimes in English we say, do you recall? And that means, do you remember? Do you recall the time that this happened or that happened? And some of those things we don't want to go into right now. We don't want to go into everything we might recall of happening in the old days. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. But one of the things is remember has a bigger connotation than that. To remember the Lord, to remember what we do, is to put our trust in Him again, sort of like faith. It has action in it. It's not just, I recall that, sure. It's that I remember and I put my faith in and I take action in my life. My life is put in trust in the Lord when it says to remember the Lord. And as we look at this, one of the things to remember in our verses here is that when they're talking about going to the assembly to celebrate, to sing, and to have a festival, all those are good things. But when we come to the assembly, it is about God. It is about Christ. It's not just a time to socialize. And we don't. I love this socialize. I'm not trying to get us to stop that. I think that's very important. But it's not just about coming together for our benefit with each other. It's about coming together to worship God together. And I think that's one of the things we want to remember. Because it says in there, as a deer pants for water, my soul pants for you. That we desire the Lord. And this is a theme that runs throughout the Bible. You look in the Sermon on the Mount, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness will be filled. That thirsting for the Lord is there. That when Jesus is there with the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman at the well, in John 4, it tells us that He is the living water. And that's one of the things we're desiring for and we're panting for. And that's one reason we come to church. That is the reason to come to church, is to find the Lord here. Is to find Him. We talked about that last time. That we find Christ here with each other. And as we look at that question, we'll go back to it. Where is God in this pandemic? And sometimes I think that the right question, that's not the right question. I think that sometimes the question is, where am I in this pandemic? Where are you in this pandemic? And where are we in this pandemic? And I know that we don't have a cure. We've talked about that. We don't have the vaccine. We don't have the cure. We don't have the way to snap our fingers and make it go away. We don't. But we do have a way to make a difference. We have it by showing love. This is not the first time there has been a plague or a pandemic in the world. It's not. And I'm not trying to make light of it at all. It's very serious. But we make a difference for God by showing love in the world. We make a difference by helping those that need help. We make a difference by trying to show that we still love God. You know, in 1 Peter 2:9, there is that verse that says that we are a peculiar people, a royal priesthood. And I've heard lessons talked about on that's talking about that we're different, that we worship differently, or we may have the Lord's Supper every week instead of not like everybody. I don't think that's what it's talking about, although that's certainly part of it. When you look at the letter that Peter wrote to those churches, they are in trouble, and they are being persecuted, and they are in real dire straits. And it's the way they handle that. When you look at the history of Christianity, one of the things that over and over comes up is what makes a difference in the world is the way Christians handle adversity. It's when people want us to kill them and throw them to the lions for their faith, they go. When they want a situation where they want to help people, they do. And so I think that that's one way that we are a peculiar people, that we are a royal priesthood. It's not necessarily exactly how we do things differently in the service. It's how we do differently in the world. It's how we treat other people, how we show love so that people will know that God is here. So when we ask, where is God in this pandemic? He's with us. Are we showing it? Are we making a difference in the world around us? And I think that's something we want to remember. We want to make a difference. We talked about Trudy working at the nursing home, and she's certainly not alone. She's not the only nursing home. It's not the only person working. Not the only doctor. But those people, we want to remember them. We want to remember the sacrifice that they are making. And we want to remember each other. If we can make a difference for each other, that's where we want to start. And if we want to make a difference in the world, we reach out. And that's hard to do in isolation. I know that. But if we're willing to show love, we're willing to show God to the world in this pandemic. So when we ask, if somebody asks you, where's God in this pandemic? We need to look at ourselves. And we need to figure where we are and how we are doing that. But that's where we are. If someone needs help, we want to know it. And that's in the community, or if that's in this building right now. If you are in need, or if you have a prayer request, or if you have something that we can help you with, in any way, we would ask that you come as we stand and as we sing.